Thanks for the introduction, Susan. And thanks to everybody for sticking around for the rest of the presentations today. It's such a nice day outside right now, it's kind of tempting to kind of just walk outside for a while. When Susan and James Graybow and I were discussing what sort of a talk that we wanted to have here at this Discovery Day, we kind of agreed that it'd be kind of nice to have something that didn't have any data slides in it. So I don't have any data slides. But what I do have is I have a lot of information and, again, extensive experience on setting up labs, next-gen labs, and running them, and know some of the pitfalls and the tricks and the tips that we can pass along to. So I just want to take a real quick poll. How many of you are considering buying a MiSeq? We got a couple. No, we got a few. Okay, that's fine. Now, how many are currently running a MiSeq? Okay, that's great. Now, those currently running a MiSeq, how many are doing 16S protocol? Okay, quite a few. All right. Now, that 16S protocol was developed by a lot of different labs, and including Rob Knight's lab, I'm drawing a blank. Jeff Gordon, and Wash U, and our friend at Argonne. Where did he go off to? Jack, yeah, there he is. Hey, hi, Jack. But it was tricky. It took us a while. So what we wanted to do is kind of give you some of our tips and tricks that we use for that. That's going to come towards the end of the talk. But what I really want to talk about at the beginning here, okay, there's that. There we go. I want to get this out of the way first, the acknowledgement slide, because I usually, if I do run on, this is the most important slide, and this is the one I want everybody to see first. Is, we do have a lot of people at the University of Colorado, and with the 16S group and Rob Knight's group, obviously we get a lot of help from these people. Donna Lyons, who does a lot of the sample prep, Tony Walters on the bioinformatics side, and also Laura Parfrey and Jessica Metcalf, and many, many members of that group. And then also at Illumina, Tim Gill-Martin, who's our FAS, he's in the back, and their support group with Amy Wanstrat, our engineer Robin, and then internally we work closely with Jesse Stricker, Kristen Dietrich, Jeremy Pierce, and then also with the entire great folks in their customer support group. So real quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the BioFrontiers Institute, where I work, and then some slides about getting started on what to expect when expecting your MiSeq. And you got to laugh at my jokes. Because if you don't laugh at my jokes, this is going to be a long half hour. How are you going to do this right? Operational aspects, general philosophy and operation of the lab that we have, potential pitfalls, some tips and tricks. So the BioFrontiers Institute is an institute within the University of Colorado in Boulder. It was started out as CIMB, which is the Colorado Initiative for Molecular Biotechnology. And it was a grassroots effort that was started about 7 years ago by Leslie Leinwand and some of the other thought leaders in the state on the biotech side to come up with a biotech institute within the university that would be cross-disciplinary and very collaborative. It's housed now, this is the Smalley Crothers Biotech building, and if you haven't been there, it's a beautiful building. It was dedicated last April, and it's just a wonderful place to work. Here's a picture of it with the flat irons there in the background. And the best part of this is that LASP, which is the Laboratory for Space and Atmospheric Science, I think, or Planetary Science, we took their view away because we put this big building right in front of their view. So they get mad at us, but it's okay. And the whole idea behind the Institute is really, again, cross-collaboration, cross-interdisciplinary collaboration to look at these challenging, grand challenge questions in biotech and bioscience. There's the website at the bottom there if you want to pay a visit to the website sometime. Right now, we currently have a HiSeq and one MiSeq, and we're probably going to go to 2 MiSeqs because the utilization on our MiSeq is very heavy. Our sequencing facility is seeing very steady and increased use over the last 2 years. So we've been operational for 2 years, our HiSeq for 2, and our MiSeq for 1. We work with a lot of PIs in Boulder. We have 25. We work with 5 at the Anschutz Medical Campus in Aurora. And we also work at as many as 18 other investigators from 14 other institutions and research organizations. We also work with biotech companies. Now, that's one thing that's very unique in this area, is that we actively engage with the local biotech community on product development and commercialization. And by providing them access to this cutting-edge instrumentation, which can be a little expensive, but that expense, that capital expenditure is sometimes kind of it's a barrier for them to get their research done. So we work with, again, about 5 of them. We've got large biotech companies that are doing product development for sequencing, and they want to test and develop their products in using our facilities and our expertise. There are also smaller biotech companies that are using the data in strain developments for bioenergy and biofuels. And more importantly, one of them is a brewery. So Clotilda is around here. We're actually doing sequencing on strains as well, which is great. I mean, that's a great project. Come on. And they're going to pay us in beer. And on the MiSeq here, we've just within the first year we've trained over 6 postdocs, techs, and graduate students to independently use that MiSeq. Okay, so what to expect when you are expecting your MiSeq to be delivered. Here's our sequencing facility here. The first thing I always kind of think about is the environment of the instrument. You want to have it in an area that is low traffic. It's not next to any doors that are constantly opening and closing. And you want to have good temperature control. That's a good question. I'm going to say 68 degrees, which is a little low. But when this particular room where I'm located, it was never originally designed to have people in it, just instrumentation. So all I get is cold air. I don't have a heater. But so we keep it as constant 68 degrees all the time, which isn't too bad, except in the summer and in the winter. It's a little cold. And then a lot of times, if you were to take a look at this slide here, backup power. I can't tell you how many times as an FAS when I would go to site visits for new installs, I would look at their electrical requirements and I would say, is this on backup power? They're like, well, the whole building's on backup power. And I said, well, if the power goes out, you need a dedicated power line, the 20 amp fuse. And so that red, see that red plug? That means you have emergency backup power. And that's actually, how many people know if the instruments are on backup power? Okay, so they all are, okay? Here in Boulder, we have wicked lightning storms in the afternoons during the summer. So we also add in a surge protector between our UPS, uninterrupted power source, and then also our MiSeq right there. So how many people have a surge protector in between? Yeah.
Part of UPS too, right?
Well, for the HiSeq has an APC, and the APC also has a surge protector in it, but this does not have an APC. So, yeah, feel free to interrupt me with questions. I know this is kind of a more less formal talk. Yeah.
I'm curious about the temperature. What happens when it's too warm?
So, in the old days, the GA2X, or actually it was the GA Classic. That's what we like to call it, the Classic. Yeah. The question was, what is the effect of having what is the effect of too much, an elevated temperature on the instrumentation? And what I was saying a long time ago, when I mean long, I mean like 5, 6 years ago, the GA2X's, or actually the GA Classic, was very sensitive to heat. And when the temperature of the room would go up, the quality scores would drop precipitously, and the intensities would as well. And it was because the reagents were getting too hot in the room. We figured this out because we had 4 GA2s, this is before the upgrade, in a small room. And we would see this fluctuation with the quality scores throughout the run. And so we looked at the temperature of internally from the recordings, the telemetry from the run, and we see that the temperature of the instruments would go up every 12 hours, like this, right around 8 o'clock at night. The temperature would go up, and then it would come back down around 8 o'clock in the morning. What was happening is the janitors were coming in, They would clean up the trash cans. They would close the door behind them. We weren't getting any cool air in there. Now that since has been, that doesn't seem to be such an effect anymore because of the temperature control that's in the instrument. For the HiSeq, there's the mini fridge where you have the cold reagents in the chiller. So that doesn't affect it too much, and I don't think it affects the lasers to an extent. But definitely not too hot. I would say probably having it in a controlled area that is not easily accessible and not near any doors that are constantly opening and closing. That's probably kind of important. Oh, and then this is obviously, how many of you have your MiSeqs able to see the web? Okay, so not very many, right? Now, the reason I would really strongly encourage you to do this, some people can't because they're in controlled environments where, like at Los Alamos National Laboratory or maybe Argonne, you can't get out. It's firewalled, and they don't allow you to do that. There's this great thing called GoToAssist that Illumina Tech Support uses that they can remotely log on to your instrument and drive it and help you while you're on the phone. You can say, hey, I'm having a problem with my run. Can you help me? And they'll say, yeah, you go to our website. Here's a code, you log in, and you got somebody right there driving and fixing it, everything for you. So if you don't have that, and you can, I would strongly recommend it. Invest in a good instrument table. It's like having a good pair of shoes. This one here, we got these from SVS Shelving, and they're not that expensive. This was about $1,200 for our $120,000 MiSeq. So it's a very small investment for a nice, expensive piece of instrumentation that you want to protect. It's rated for, I think, 1,200 pounds. It's got some nice drawers where you can keep some things in. But one thing that I would recommend if you do go with something like a table on SVS, from SVS, they give you the option of putting casters so you can roll the table around with the instrument on it. From what I understand, working with the guys at Illumina, it's probably best to have it without the casters because it's a little bit more sensitive to vibration than the HiSeqs. The HiSeqs, we have those on a much larger table that has casters because that thing weighs 500 pounds. And you want to be able to pull it out to get to the back of it. That would have been funny to get that on tape. Wow. Who was it that fell off the stage? Was it Bush? Was it? Yeah, he wants him. I'm glad you're laughing at my jokes. How many of you have a decent analysis server that you can run Cassava on? Yeah? Not all of you, though. So if something happens to a run and you need to reprocess it in Cassava, you're going to want to be able to do that. We don't have to do that often, but sometimes if there's an error in a sample sheet, it won't post stuff to BaseSpace the way we need to do it. So then we'll have to go back. Also, it gives you the flexibility of processing things in different ways. And combining different length index tags in a sample pool that you can get away with if you know how to run Cassava. And it's really not that hard to learn. Yes?
When you say decent analysis,
A decent analysis server. The costs on these things have been coming down over the years, but what's a price range for an appropriate server to handle a MiSeq?
I think for the level that you'll get out of like a 16S run, you could probably pull it off on a good laptop that has, a couple good processors in it. For our HiSeq runs, we have our iCompute, which is the heavy metal that we use behind that. I have heard of people, getting Linux servers probably in the $5,000 range and be able to reprocess some of these runs on that.
Thanks.
Sure. We do all of our library, quality assurance, quality control using Qubit and Bioanalyzer. Those are two critical things that you're going to want to have in your lab. We don't regularly do qPCR for library quantitation. And the reason is because 70% of our applications are non-standard novel applications that haven't been tested, haven't been tried. We don't know what the clustering efficiency of those constructs is going to be. And I know like in Katrina's at that Health Sciences Center with Gao's lab, they have developed a very nice qPCR assay where they have taken a library, a TrueSeq library, and have done a titration flow cell on that library. And they use that as their qPCR standard for doing quantitation. But they have a different library type or standard for every type of library. So if it's a ChIP-seq library, they're going to do one in their qPCR assay. Or if it's an mRNA-seq or some of the other ones. So Katrina, how many of those do you have? Different standards for your qPCR assay? 5 different standards. So for us to try to do reproduce what she does, we would be spending more time doing titration flow cells than anything else. But we get away pretty well with quality assurance using the qubit and with the bioanalyzer. So some operational aspects, general philosophy and operation. We deploy this like an ATM. It looks like an ATM, acts like an ATM. If you were to, I know there's one out here. And if you were to take the one that's over here and put it in the lobby and just kind of sit behind you'll see people go up there and look to where they put their card in. I swear to God. Now, for a feature request, Diane Lentz, are you listening? We do want a credit card reader so that the people can come up and swipe it. So that's maybe for another one.
Now you fund your next one.
Yeah, HHMI. That's right. For our heavy users, like those in Rob Knight's group, we try to get them to maintain their own supply of cartridges, because then they can just walk up. Is the instrument free? Yes. Go for it. So we do that. So we do that with about 3 or 4 different labs right now. And it relieves us from having to make sure we have reagents all the time. We do keep some on hand, but for the heavy users, we ask them to get their own. We train the techs to be able to run these independently on the MiSeq. Like I said, we've done about 6. And that way you can kind of utilize them to disseminate the seq tribal knowledge rather than having you answer the same question over and over and over. But it still requires adult supervision sometimes. This is Josh Stahl. He actually works for one of our small biotech companies. And not only have we trained him to use the MiSeq and they have their own stock reagents, they'll regularly come to our lab and we have that open to them so they can use our qPCR machine, our bioanalyzer, our qubit. It's totally open. And he's a character too, kid. So some tips and tricks. One thing that I like to try to get people to do is really understand how that sequencing chemistry works with the cluster formation, the amplification, linearization, blocking, and primer hybridization. With some of my novel constructs that we're making, we'll actually sit down with a piece of paper with their sequences on it, and we line everything up to make sure that a lot of them use custom read-one sequencing primers. Does it sit in the right place? Is the linearization site there? Because sometimes we've had a construct that says you don't have a linearization site, you're not going to be able, this may cluster, but it's not going to be able to be sequenced. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to do that. With the students that are doing novel constructs, but it works out to be, we really improve our success rate on novel applications. Read the manual and follow the directions. When I was in FAS at Illumina, I would say, okay, you got a HiSeq coming. Have you read the manual that we sent you? No, hadn't read the manual. Okay, then you leave, and then 3 months later, they're trying to start their run up again, and they have forgotten everything. So read the manual and follow the directions. Yes. Notice be able to run cassava to reprocess data if and when necessary. Happiness is a clean MiSeq inside and out. We do regular maintenance and maintenance washes on ours with tween. It's 0.5% tween solution that we do. There's a new maintenance wash protocol that's out, where it actually will take some of the reagents and spit it back out into the reagent cartridge so that it kind of does a backflow kind of thing. And we do a post-run wash, obviously after every one, and then weekly maintenance washes. So it's usually about after every 3 runs. Yeah, and we've seen a lot less sort of. Some people will have reported problems that you get these kind of clogs in some of these valves, and we're switching some of the valves out We have one of the new version 3 valves, and we're seeing, and with the new maintenance wash protocol, we're seeing much more success, or a much lower failure rate, I guess I could say that.
What's your average training time for like an undergrad, master's, and then a PhD student to pick up the techniques?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Yeah, the question was, in terms of the time that we spend training the individuals to use the MiSeq, what's the disparity between undergraduate, graduate, and a postdoc? And I think what we see is we see that a lot of the postdocs actually take a lot longer to train than the undergraduates. And I think a lot of it is because they're not afraid of it. You know, they're not afraid of the MiSeq because to them it looks like an ATM, right? But when you got a postdoc and his doctoral advisor is saying this kit costs $1,000, they start shaking when they go up to the MiSeq. So actually, we do see a lot of different types of people coming through the lab. But I would say, yeah, the undergraduates seem to be a little more pliable in that respect, and less freaky, I guess.
Is that like days, like a couple days?
Oh, how long does it take?
Yeah, roughly.
Oh, a day. Oh, yeah, I can train my kid to do this in a day. And Josh, that guy that I showed you before from Archer Diagnostics, I say it's Josh-proof. So, we used to say monkey-proof, and then I said, no, call it Josh-proof. A real important thing here is utilize your application scientists and technical support people at Illumina. They're really great. And if you don't have your MiSeq network to be able to see the web, please do so. That's real important. And I hate to do this, but utilize the microbial sequencing community. And everybody's supposed to go, oh, did he really say that? So, yeah. Because, again, there's a lot of tribal knowledge, especially like 16S sequencing that is out there that you can utilize and in your studies and going through your runs. Specific tips for 16S-V4 sequencing on the MiSeq. We do our libraries at 5 picomolar with a 10 to 15% spike in. We've been reducing this with the new RTA that's been released. We're seeing very, very good results with that. We add directly the custom read 1, index read, and read 2 sequencing primers directly to those wells for read 1, index read, and read 2 on the MiSeq cartridge. We just use a long gel loading pipette tip, get in there and pipette up and down a couple times. I think we use like 5 microliters at 100 micromolar. It works for us. We don't do the staggered priming sets or the ones that we were discussing earlier. We could certainly try that as we move things along, but this works really well for us. It's very simple. And just keeping it simple has helped with our training of the individuals. We also have our MiSeq configured to generate individual fast queues for R1, index read, and read 2. How many people do that? So it's a fastq.gz file.
You do the reanalysis on the other computer with the same.
You can do this directly by changing. There's a configuration flag that we can talk about. And what it will do is then it will store all of the fast queues locally, and then you can just transfer them right over, and then that will go right into Chime, so that you don't have to go back and do the reprocessing with Cassava. Yeah, it's just a simple, you do an add key in the configuration file. And I can send that to you, how to do that. We also just use a very generic sample sheet that we just modify in Notepad. All we do is we change the date, we change the investigating name, and we change what sample we're running, and we save it as the MiSeq cartridge name. And then we're off to go. And the other thing is Donna Lyons and Rob Knight's groups put together a nice little detailed protocol with checkboxes and everything. So if you would like to get that from us, I'm sure we can supply that. I don't know if that's on the EMP site. No, but the one that Sarah owns in Jack's lab, she has something similar, right?
Yes, exactly.
She's this exact same one?
They developed it together.
I think
It's WordPress. You can put it on there as a downloadable PDF. Yeah, I'll get it on there as a downloadable PDF.
yeah. That's very useful. So I know, I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I want to see if we had any more questions from you guys. This is my contact information. Feel free to email me or call me if you have additional and specific questions. Yes?
I realize that you're a research lab, a research institute, but are you open to having clinicians via appointment come and visit your facility and see how you set it up and how you use it?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Oh, absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we do that quite often. We have lots of tours that come through on a weekly basis.
You talked about the impact of temperature on the performance of the systems. I was surprised to learn when we first met a couple of years ago the impact of altitude on these chemistries. You've worked at low and high altitudes. How do these sequencers perform in those environments?
We haven't seen any real problems with the read quality with altitude because we're at about 6,000 feet. Now, Los Alamos is about 7,200 feet, maybe even more. There was a concern that for the HiSeqs, that the vacuum pump that is used to hold that flow cell down and that activates the flow cell manifold to come up and join up with the flow cell, that vacuum wasn't going to be able to pull hard enough at altitude to keep the flow cells from moving around. The one thing that I could see that might affect the read quality and the chemistry at very high altitudes is degassing, or some change that degassing would cause to the pH or of one of the components in the sequencing. But I haven't heard of anything specific. If you want to send a HiSeq to base camp 4 and sequence the Yeti, there you go. Now you're talking.
Who could install it?
I don't know, those guys are pretty strong.
Can I ask you to speak? Ask your questions.
We have a grant application in with National Geographic to collect frozen fecal specimens from climbers on Everest from the pre-antibiotic era. So you might have an excuse to go up there and install one after all, if that's funded.